play a character who is a real life character, how do you go about capturing the essence of that character without doing an impersonation?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I always do it, to be honest with you. Like Crash was like a cross between my brother and a good friend of mine. And even for comedies, like 30 minutes or less, or like Observe and Report, they're always like from somebody real. So I'm like, I've been doing that for a long time, but there's this added pressure that he actually meant something, and it didn't help that everybody was saying, don't mess this up. Try your best, but don't mess it up. And but with him, for me, it was like a week and a half before filming. Diego's like, I think you should do his voice, man. And I was like, oh man. And we were shooting in a week and a half, so I'm like, it was all day, every day, like doing that, and it was the right choice because it's that kind of cadence that leads you to it. It's almost like if you ask, like, what would your mom think about this, and then all of a sudden you kind of see, life through her eyes, or your dad or whoever. That's a little window as to like what you could do potentially as an actor, and that's what I try to do.
Back here in the back.
Or that's just me?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. See, let them
like,
talk. See.
Yeah. Well, I know for you, I don't know, you want to say that?
No.
Okay, good.
No, you made it up.
For me,
Cool.
yeah.
Genius.
For me, I mean, it was really intense and really scary because I love you. And I got a chance to meet Dolores years before with Voto Latino. We were at a town hall on immigration, and I remember being so excited when I met her. I had gone up to speak, and then she went up to speak, and she was like, I'm sure you don't remember this, but I do. And she was like, well, Rosario said earlier, and I was like, oh my God, she knows who I am. This is amazing. Like I remember just going to my friend. I was like, she retweeted me, and like she was just repeating what I said, but now she actually does tweet me, and we call and we talk to each other. And we were able to communicate. I'd call her from Hermosillo, and she had notes for the film, and she'd read the script, and she was a part of this, and it was really intense, because I honor you and I love you, and I think she's still out there. You're still out there doing this work, incredible work, and she was getting the Medal of Freedom while we were filming, and so just being able to have the chance to do advocacy work with her, and come and support her foundation, and she's wearing a Voto Latino shirt. It's just I'm beside myself all the time, anytime we have any interaction, and I'm so inspired by you and have been, through my family for many years. My grandmother used to go and translate pamphlets for marches and things into Spanish, and more of the community can be a part of it. This is a legacy that has affected my life for many years. So to have an opportunity to honor that work and celebrate it through something that I've been doing for a long time was so incredible, but also incredibly unnerving and really nerve-wracking, because you want to get it right, and you hope that your presentation is something that they feel good about, because I can't even imagine what that must feel like to watch your life be portrayed in a film, and consolidated down into these little bit moments. They weren't doing this work to be made into a movie. They didn't live it in a perfect 3-4 act structure. They had no idea what was coming up next, and that what was going to be successful or what wasn't. And wanting to honor that, the moments where they were plagued by doubt, the moments where they celebrated and just had barbecue and had beer with each other and danced and had music, and they were people. And it's really hard to represent that when you're just having artistic license, let alone when you know that the person's going to watch it later. So I have to say it was really remarkable to see the film with you yesterday, because Dolores is sitting next to me as we're watching the movie, and she's like telling me her favorite bits and and what and I think it'd just be really amazing for her to do the DVD commentary, because what I got yesterday just sitting next to you was so remarkable, and something that is the gift of the fact that you're still with us and you're still doing this work, and it's so relevant to you. Unfortunately, Richard Chavez died the summer before we started filming, and as obviously we know CESAR died over 20 years ago, so but we still have Helen, we still have so many of the different people, and to be able to have that resource is just unbelievable.
Gabriel, would you like to add in?
Yeah, I think of the roles, I think Diego mentioned it. The role that I played, playing John Malkovich's son, is was based on someone that we weren't really saying it was based off of, and it was kind of an amalgamation of different things. So, maybe there's a little bit of a different kind of freedom there to discover and find things. I don't know, are these great growers men we want to honor through our portrayals? I don't know, or their behavior and so forth, and the things that they did. But, so there was some freedom there to kind of see what happened. And there was, Diego created a really beautiful atmosphere on set of, kind of openness and discovery, and so, and getting to work with somebody as brilliant as Malkovich, you know, you just sit there in the room and watch him do what he does, and hopefully be present enough to react truthfully to what he's giving you. And I think, you know, if we got that much, then we probably did okay. So, and
As I mentioned before, Michael's going to have to leave.
Dolores wants to say.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Just a quick comment on both roles. First of all, I just want to say that what Diego, when he brought in the whole issue of the family, which was something that people don't think about, the sacrifices that families have to make, you know, when you're doing activist work. But we know at the same time, if we don't make those sacrifices, then nothing's going to change, you know, nothing's going to happen. The other thing is, and by the way, that whole story of CESAR's son is something that people really didn't know, and I think that many people, even in the movement, didn't know. So I think it's a really great stroke of genius to put that in the film. And they always say that art is prophetic, and in terms of the grower's son, I just want to say that one of the scenes in there is when Malkovich is talking to his son and kind of putting him down, you know, you got a degree, whatever. And that is so true, because in the grower community, when we started organizing back in 62 and the strike in 68, whatever, but so many of those growers, their sons did not keep up with the farming. And so a lot of those farms have been taken over by the big corporations like Dole and other major corporations, and their sons did not go into farming. It's very rare that many of those bitches, that was a lot. They were all Slavonians, and so they were all related. So the character of the grower kind of represents the whole slew of them. I'm going to be really excited to see what their reaction is when they see the movie. But I just want to say that without even knowing, I mean, the portrayal of the grower's son was just magnificent. And so I just want to congratulate you for that. You did awesome.
Sorry about that, guys. I'm shutting the bed here.
Okay.
Nos vemos pronto.
Once again, big hand for Michael.
This is Ciao.
Okay, let's go right here next.
Dolores, I wanted to ask if there's a favorite part of the movie for you, or something that you found particularly moving or affecting, what that is. What's your favorite thing that came out of the movie being made?
Well, I think that Michael Pena's portrayal of the past was just extraordinary. It was just magnificent. I mean, to kind of show what Caesar had to go through to continue that fast. And of course, we were all scared to death. We thought that if this man dies while he's fasting for 25 days, all of the people are going to blame us, you know, for letting it happen. And of course, later on, you know, he did a 36-day fast in 1988, and that fast was against pesticides. But it was always a very, very scary time, and I thought his portrayal it was just fabulous. Too bad it could have been a 2-hour movie, you know, because there's so much more that could have been included when, you know, it was a 2-hour movie. But I think that when I look at all of the movie, and also the part of Helen Chavez. Helen Chavez is a very private person, but a very strong person. I always used to say to people, there's only 2 beings that Caesar's afraid of. That's God and Helen. Okay? and in the movie, they portray Helen Chavez. You know, she would. I think in the early days she would have died. She would have said, "You can't do that." She wouldn't even let anybody take her picture. The only time she let her picture taken was you know, when she was in the White House once, when they gave Caesar the Medal of Freedom Award. But to be able to show her and give her, you know, kind of highlight her role, it was very important, because she suffered a lot. I mean, there's parts when people would say to Helen, well, how do you know where your husband's at? Do you think he's out there organizing? You have no idea. I remember one time when it was Thanksgiving, and Caesar forgot it was Thanksgiving, and he set up a meeting somewhere else in the valley, and all the family came. And I know Helen was very hurt, because all of her family was saying, how do you know where he's at? You know, so it just, that faith that she had and that support, he never could have done it without her.
Back up against the wall.
I'm Nelson Jimenez from Texas Student Television. You said, this is to Diego Luna, you said yourself that this community is very underrepresented in film. What would be your best advice that you could give to other aspiring Latino filmmakers?
I don't know if I should wait till 29th of March. Because probably they'll wake up in April knowing there's an audience that send a message, and the reality is going to be different. I just hope the next film about this community doesn't take 4 years to get made, you know. I just wish, we send the right message. after the 28th. But I would say that our stories matter, that we are the ones that have to start celebrating our stories. We are the ones that have to make the effort. You know, there was a moment where things looked like they were not going to happen, basically. We were not finding the financing, and there was a moment where we could have said, that's it, let's go and do a movie in Mexico like the ones we do. But what we said is, let's do this movie in Mexico the way we do film. But let's keep telling the same story, you know, because if it's so difficult, it's because there's a reason, you know, and we have to prove it. We have to prove right that we as a community have an appetite to see our stories portrayed, you know. So I'm going to send a message not to the filmmakers, but this time to the audience. If we want to be celebrated, this is our chance, you know, because the 1st of April, if we are in the top 3, top 5, top 10, whatever, if we make it to that list, everyone making choices on what's the next film they're going to do, where they're going to put their money, are going to think about us. And then reality will be different for filmmakers and audiences at the same time.
Right here in front.
So this question is kind of for Diego and Dolores in regards to, you talk about breaking the bubble, and the culture is such, with the machismo attitude of both the men's role and the woman's role. How do you break out of that, of the idea of if you're rural, you know, if you're rural, lower socioeconomic, or also the idea, as you said, where's your husband? Mm-hmm. How, as a woman, do you become empowered to make the change?
I have to say that there's a little, I mean, you should be careful and not fall into the stereotype when you think about our community. They you know, like the way they behaved, it's an amazing lesson, you know.
But what's wonderful, I'm just saying, like my grandmother was very upset when I wound up living with a man, and she was like, you don't live out of wedlock. You do that once you're married and you have babies. That's the culture that we raised, but I'm from the valley, so that's why it's a bit different.
I think things are changing. I think, and that's the complexity and diversity we have to make sure we put out there when we represent our community, you know. Well, Cesar was the image of the Mexican American with a chorizo burrito in the hand, the tequila bottle, singing mariachi, does not apply for this man. This man was a vegetarian. He did yoga. He read Gandhi. He loved jazz. I went to his office and he had barely 2 or 3 cassettes of Mexican music. He had tons of John Coltrane, Miles Davis, Charlie Parker. It was shocking to see that we were gonna have to talk about all of that. The language thing, for example, that tells you about the complexity. He would speak in Spanish to his parents, in English to his wife and kids. But when he fought with Helen said he would switch to Spanish. You know, his first sons and daughters have Mexican names or Spanish names. You know, like Fernando, and the last one is called Paul. So it's interesting to see, and that's a complexity you normally don't get to see, which is that same thing of Dolores saying, well, we had to sacrifice time with our families, with our kids, but then there was someone taking care of your kids, and they became part of your family, no?
Yeah, I think you still do have the machismo because you have a lot of recent immigrants from Mexico. And Central America and Latin America. So it's still a very strong culture. And of course in the movement, the women were always up in the front. They were the ones that were going to jail, you know, everything else. And so I think it led by example. And in my own case, I was like divorced twice, you know. Caesar's brother Richard became my companion. And there was some fear on my part that there would be a criticism from the farm workers, but there wasn't. In fact, the whole delegation of them you know, went up there and talked to Caesar. We don't want any criticisms here. And I think the way that women change is when they get involved. And that's the way that we break the machismo, because women have to take those risks and women have to set the example. And in terms of the farm worker movement, I had an incredible amount of support from the farm workers. In fact, in spite of the fact that I was a woman doing the organizing, I remember when we first started doing house meetings, I only had one person ever, one house meeting that was canceled because they said, we won't meet with you because you're a woman. But then I had hundreds of meetings where people responded. So I think it's when people know that you're trying to help them and that you're sincere and that you're not doing it for your own personal advantage, people will respond. And in my own organization right now, the Dolores Huerta Foundation, that's the people that we work with. And it's wonderful when you see these women who come up and say, before I could even speak in public, and I'm on the school board, you know, and that's what it is. We just have to get women to take that leap and know that they're going to get criticism from their immediate families, but they have to do the work anyway. And when the women see them up there, then that's what makes all the difference. Si se puede.
Someone hasn't had a question in orange shirt.
Yeah, for Diego, I'm
Yes,
sure
sir.
a lot of people have wanted to bring this story to the big screen over the years. How did it end up being you, as the director to do that, to actually make it happen? And then also, is there any sort of significance that you think to having it come out now, as opposed to, like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or anything like that?
It was an interesting ride, I have to say. We sat down with Paul, who runs the Chavez Foundation, and we spoke about. I tried to explain why I thought we were the right company and I was the right voice to do this film, and that's because even though I am completely connected and I see behind the story of this movement a little bit of who I am, I also was raised and born in Mexico City, and I have some distance, not just like a generational one. My father, he does theater. He had no contact with the world of farm workers, and I was born in '79. Our story ends, the period we talk about ends in '72. So I think that distance would give me some objectivity about this, and would give me the chance to leave out what needs to be left out without having to please any agenda, that I had or emotional investment I had on this film, because I really got in love with almost every character. I shot everything. I gave myself all the options to go to the editing room and then get rid of stuff. It's weird the film did not happen before, but it also, there's time needed to pass, I think, for the family, for Helen, for example, to be ready to talk about personal and intimate stuff. And without that information, this film would be nothing, I had a meeting with Helen of 3 hours where I asked her everything about CESAR, I said, well, were you jealous when CESAR left? I mean, he would travel with Dolores or with many women, and you had to stay. And she said, no, he was jealous. Every time he came back, he wanted to know exactly what I did because he knew life continued. And I go like, really? So we went back to write, and we wrote that scene in the car where he's like, oh, you had fun in jail? Oh, that's so cool. Those little details, the whole story about Fernando, that wasn't in the script. That wasn't in the script Keir Pearson wrote. That wasn't in the third draft we all read. That happened on a meeting with Helen. I said, what was the saddest moment of the journey? And she said, when we realized Fernando was not coming back. And I go, what? What do you mean coming back? He left? And everyone went silent in the room, and obviously, I was listening to the story that the kids wanted to tell me, that Paul and his brothers and sister wanted to tell me, but then I was there with Helen, and Helen was the right person to talk about Cesar's intimacy. There's no one better, and she said, it was the saddest moment ever because we realized he was gone. The struggle took our kid away from us. And I almost started crying when she said that, and I said that there's a film. And I went back to write to write the script a little bit based, and the structure is all relating to the relation father and son. I don't know why I'm saying this because your question was very different from what I'm answering.
That's Cesar would hardly ever say he did anything wrong, but the one thing he said, that mistake that he made with his first son, and it was his love of golf was one of the reasons, which he